Hello and welcome to the second episode of this devlog. My name is Marvin and today I'll show you how my player character works. And besides that, what kinds of abstract scenes I created and why. So let's get right into it with the player character. For a quick rundown, as you can see, I have an animation player and an animation tree. I use the tree for the running animations. So the animation tree handles in which direction the animation should be played, or which animation should be played for a specific direction, instead of handling it in the player script. And the animation player is used for right now for the swinging animation, so swinging the sword. And I have two separate sprite sheets for running and attacking, but ideally this should be one sheet. Yeah, that's a workaround for now, but I plan to merge them eventually. So yeah, let's look at the code. We have the ready function with some setup, nothing too wild, and the physics process method, which is invoked every frame, I think. Yeah. So I have a state enum. So the player character can either move or be in combat. And this is checked here. If we move, then the player movement method gets invoked. And this is a pretty default code, I would say. This is nothing too out of the ordinary. We have a velocity and the input vector. So we check if UI right or left is pressed. So are we going left or right? And then if we are going up or down. And that's stored in this input vector. We set it to the animation tree, and then we set the animation state to run, because we check if the input vector is not 0, so we want to move, therefore we want to set the state to run, and we do the move towards. And if it is 0, we set the animation state to idle. Yeah, and then we do the move and slide. That's for the player movement. For the combat movement, or let me first show the combat movement. Basically, this is the normal movement. If I press V on my keyboard, I enter the combat state. And in this combat state, I can attack. I cannot do that if I'm in the normal movement state. Just so you know the difference. And the combat movement is pretty similar. We do the player movement, but besides that, we also check for an attack. So if we press the attack button, in my case that's the spacebar, we do the attack, which is, and here you can see why having two sprite sheets is really nasty, because I have to make the running sprite invisible, and the attack sprite should be visible, of course. And then I play the attack animation in the animation player. And after doing the attack, I reverse the sprite sheets, or invert it, so that I have the running sprite again and not the attack sprite. And that's basically how the movement works for the player character. I also have like a consume item method, but we'll come to this in a different episode, where I introduce the inventory system. So that's it about the player character. And also, if you have any questions or want me to go into detail of certain aspects of what I show in this devlog series in general, feel free to post a comment, and I'll try to answer them in the comments, or if I think that it makes sense, I can do another episode or just a video on that topic. Okay, so let's talk about the abstract scenes that I created and why I created them. So I didn't like the way I implemented the sword for my character, because it was part of my player character, and also things like the damage of the sword were part of the player stats. Let me show the player stats real quick, because I didn't show you yet. We have stuff like max speed, acceleration, friction for running, max health, current health, and damage or weapon damage, I don't remember how I named it, was in here as well. And you can imagine that adding a new weapon would be horrible, because the weapon was just a node in this tree, and yeah, so I needed a new structure so that I could incorporate new weapons into the game easily. So that's why I created the abstract weapon scene. You can think of it as a template for new weapons. So we have a sprite, because every weapon has a sprite. We have a weapon hitbox pivot, so you can put it on the hand of the player, for example. We have a hitbox, and we have weapon stats like damage and knockback. Yeah, so if I want to create a new weapon, all I have to do is create a new inherited scene. And then, of course, load the proper texture into it, and adjust the collision shape of the hitbox so that the hitbox fits the weapon. If it's a long weapon, you have a bigger hitbox, for example. But that's it. For example, here we have the sword you saw. It's an abstract weapon. I loaded the sprite into it, and I even left the collision shape as it was. So yeah, that's pretty neat. And I did the same thing for creatures. Because I plan to have a lot of enemies or NPCs. Just a lot of creatures. So I did the same thing. It's very similar. You have, like, every creature has a sprite. Every creature has a hurt box. Should also have a collider, as I look at it right now, because if we run against the enemy, it should, because right now it's like a ghost. So yeah, I should improve that. And we have creature stats as well. Like, oh, it's not what I wanted. We have max health, current health, so that if we hit this guy to death, he will die. He will just despawn. Yeah, and what's great about this kind of these kind of abstract scenes is that for example, for my case, every new weapon that I create that inherits from this abstract weapon scene is able to hit and destroy any creature that inherits from this abstract creature scene, and without any additional wiring. So that's really great. Especially because I'm planning to create a lot of weapons and a lot of creatures. If you want me to go into more detail about this, let me know. Because I'm just, running through it at this point. Okay, so let's look at the abstract item scene. As you may have noticed, I have some bottles on the ground. And if I hover over them, it gets an outline and I can pick them up. So if I click them, I just click them. It gets transferred to my inventory. And I'll go over the inventory in the next inventory episode. But let's take a look at the abstract item scene. So, as you might have guessed, it's very similar to other abstract scenes. We have a sprite, we have item stats, and this is a bit complex because this goes hand in hand with the inventory system, which I'll go over in the next episode. Because here we are talking about consume effects, stacks, blah blah blah, but it doesn't really matter for us now. But let me show you the area 2D. We need the area 2D. Oh, let me show you. Show it this way. It's like this area right here, so that if we hover over the item, the item knows when we are hovering over it and can react to it. And we can see this in the code as well. Yeah, over here we have the on area entered. So if we enter the area with the mouse, no, not with the mouse, with the player collider, because I have this collider over here, or collision shape area 2D, this one right here. If we run into an item with this area 2D, we can select it. So if I'm standing back here, I'm not in range, I cannot select it, and I can, even if I click it, I cannot pick it up. But this works. So yeah, if an area is entered with another area, and this area is in the item selection range, that's the group that I assigned in the player collider. So if it's the player collider, basically the is player in range boolean is set to true. It's like a attribute. And if I exit, then it gets set to false. And now if we enter the area 2D with the mouse, then it's checked if the player is in range, and if he is, then we draw the outline. And this is a shader. So I'm not having like outline sprites. So like a separate sprite where I have the outline of the item. But this shader draws the outline automatically, or like dynamically. That's what I wanted to say. And if we exit with the mouse, then it gets disabled. And if we click the item, it's again checked if we are in range. And if we click the left mouse button, I don't really like this if statement, but yeah, I didn't manage to do it any other way. But I have to fix this. It's not nice. But if we click it and this whole expression is true, then we emit the add item signal. So we are in here in this script of the area 2D, and we emit this add item signal to the abstract item to the root node. And it's this method basically. And we pass the item, so self, we pass the item to the global singleton. And I'll go over this singleton in the inventory episode as well, because yeah, it's very specific. One more thing, if you plan to do this outline with a shader as well, then you have to be careful about how you use the material, because I had a problem where when I selected an item like this one, then every item in the scene, like let's take this one, then every item would get outlined, because I use the same material for every sprite. This is why this line solved the problem. I just duplicated the material so that just the material of the item it belongs to gets outlined and not every item. So yeah, that's an overview of my abstract scenes. If you have any questions, any kind of questions, post them below. I'll try to answer them. And I'll show you my inventory system in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in, and see you in the next episode.